This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
All our Torah Anytime viewers. Everyone's invited to join us. Thank you. At 1601 Quentin Road at 8 p.m. in Brooklyn, New York, 11229, I think, for women only every Thursday. Okay. There's also an announcement that next, not this Sunday, so the following Sunday, which I believe is June 28th, there's going to be a very interesting class. So me and Rabbi Yaron Ruvain, I don't know who is familiar with Rabbi Yaron, close friend of mine, he's coming into to town, and we're going to be doing a co-shiur together on a very mature topic, and it's going to be on modesty and wasting seed. It's going to be for men and women, and it's going to be like we're each going to give like a short speech, and then we're going to have an open forum for Q&A. And if anybody wants to submit questions anonymously, they could always email it to either myself at Rabbi Zitron at TorahAnytime.com or info@be'ezrathashem.org. Check Rabbi wants it, or just email me. We're going to share anyways the information. So everyone's invited to join us. No, it's a good question, where it's going to be. It's going to be in 1212 East 15. Or Yeshiva or Yitzchak. Okay, so let us begin. So this is the final class, Be'ezrat Hashem, on the topic of the 13 principles of faith. Usually the way that we've been doing it is that we give a recap. Whenever we start a new of the 13 principles of faith, we give a recap of all the previous 13 principles of faith, and then we continue. Today we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to jump right into the topic, which is resurrection of the dead. And we will go and we will give the recap at the end. So we'll give a full recap. You could get a very nice understanding of the whole thing. Okay, so the 13 principles of faith is Ani Ma'amin B'una Shlema. I believe with perfect faith. That there will be a resurrection of the dead. When the will of the Creator, when the will of God comes, that's when there's going to be the resurrection of the dead. And may His name be blessed and exalted and remembered forever and ever. Okay, so the gist of this is that in the time of Mashiach, there's going to be a period known as the resurrection of the dead, when the dead are going to be resurrected. There are many verses in the Torah that support this. You look at, for example, at Daniel chapter 12, verse 2. It says, "V'rabim mishnei admas afar yakitzu." It says that many who sleep in the dust of the earth will awaken. So you have many people just sleep anywhere. That's why it says, why did it say resurrection of the dead? Why can't you just say resurrection? So some people need to be resurrected even when they're alive. Even when they're alive, they're dead. And in fact, in the time of the Holocaust, they were known as Muslims. They were known as like the dead people walking. What was that? Because they were dead inside. There's an ability of somebody to be alive and dead at the same time. There's, unfortunately, due to certain, either psychological defects or chemical defects or a combination of both, or a numerous amount of other different issues, a person can be dead while they're alive. But here, when we're referring to resurrection of the dead, we're referring to the people that are physically dead. No more heartbeat, in the ground, and they're going to come back, alive. Rabbi Shimshon Pincus goes and explains as follows: said that every Jew is born with a connection, a piece of God. Everyone's connected with God, and by that means that that soul, that piece of you, lasts forever. Now, as opposed to, let's say, Christianity. When the way that the majority of Christianity believes is that when a soul comes into this world, that soul is defected. That soul is bad, and it came with sin. And the only way that it's going to go and going to fix itself is only if it believes in whatever all the nonsense that they go and they spill. But the Jewish understanding of it, the correct understanding of it, is that the Jewish soul is not only it comes in that it's going to last forever, but also comes in holy. It's a holy piece that's going to last forever. And that is why we're going to see how this all plugs in, that eventually what's going to happen is there's going to be a resurrection of the dead. Now there was heretics that went and asked Rabbi Gamliel. Chazal tells us this interesting back and forth. They go and they ask him, what is the source of the Torah? What is the source in the Torah that says that there's a resurrection of the dead? Show me proof. That's what they wanted to hear. They wanted to see some proof. So Rabbi Gamliel goes back and forth with them. He says, okay, here's a proof. They weren't so happy with that. They said, oh, maybe this means something else. Maybe this means something else. Until he gave them a proof, and they said, fine, you know what? Now we have to accept it. So the way that it went, and we'll go very briefly, we're not going to go through all of them, he gives them he quotes them from Yeshayahu, chapter 26, verse 19. It says that, may your dead live, and may your corpses shall rise. So the heretic said, okay, well, maybe this is referring to the resurrection by Yechezkel HaNavi. Maybe it's not referring to the future resurrection. Maybe it's talking about previous resurrection. So then Rabbi Gamliel went and he quoted him from Shir HaShirim, chapter 7, verse 10. It says that it will cause the lips of the sleeping to move. So the heretics went and they said, okay, but this just has the lips. So who says the whole body is going to be resurrected? Maybe the lips are just going to move. So then he quoted them final verse in Devarim chapter 11, verse 21. Asher nishba Hashem lavotechem latet lahem. That the God swore to give to the forefathers to them. It doesn't say to you, rather it says to them, meaning that the Gemara in Sanhedrin chapter 90, page 90 goes and explains that what does it mean to them? That in the future they're going to come back to life and God will give it to them. So what we see over here is something very interesting. Now, if you didn't understand everything I just said, it's fine. All you have to know, there was a back and forth with the heretics, and the heretics said, oh, no, and finally he gave them such a strong proof, and he said, fine, you know what, you're right. So it says Rabbi Shimshon, because look at the difference between the heretics in the olden days and the heretics today. And the heretics in the olden days, the people that kofrin, the people that didn't believe the Torah, didn't believe in Judaism, didn't believe in God, if they went and you are able to prove them with simple logic, they'll be like, well, you know, you're right. Yeah, I got to give it to you, you're right. Today's day and age, maybe it's the people that I need, I don't know. But no matter how much logic, there's certain people, no matter how much logic you speak to them, no matter how much you explain to them, how simple and obvious it is that there is a God, that there is a Torah is legit. Like, you don't have to go through so much. I mean, I know we went through 32 classes proving it, but you could technically do it within like 5 minutes. That's how much you really need to prove that there's a God and the Torah is legit. But you have people that they go through all this logic and be like, no, because that makes absolutely no sense. But yet they go through this entire spiel that makes absolutely no sense. How could it be that back in the olden days, the heretics, at least they were true heretics. Like they believed in something, but then when they were convinced otherwise, they were like, okay, fine, you know what, you're right. But nowadays, no matter how much you go and you try to convince somebody, even though it's the most simple, straightforward logic, they still can't get it. So Rabbi Shimshon goes on and says, what happens if someone's a heretic regarding this concept of resurrection of the dead? Let's say he believes in the entire Torah. He or she believes in the entire Torah, believes in everything except resurrection of the dead. Come on, really? There's going to be dead people, there's going to be a zombie apocalypse. Like, what really, like, people are going to come out of the grave? Doesn't make any sense. That doesn't happen. What is the punishment for that person? So, and by the way, this is a belief. This is not something that you have to physically do. You don't have to crawl into a grave every night and then just like, coming out, resurrection, right? And you go and you act it out. And by the way, you should know there was a very wealthy person who went, and because he had a tremendous amount of money. I have a name in my mind, but I'm not sure if it is. I'm not going to say the name. But all you have to know, it's a very, very wealthy person, that he used to have a coffin. And he used to put himself into the coffin to remember that all the money that he has is all temporary. Afterwards, he's all going back into the same wooden box that everybody else is getting. There's no mahogany coffin in Judaism, right? There's no cushions. You don't get makeup when you die. What you came in is the same way that you leave, with nothing. So he did it to remember. But like the concept of of understanding the resurrection of the dead, it's a pure belief. So if somebody just does not believe in it, what is his punishment? You think, okay, it shouldn't be that great. Okay, so he doesn't believe in this. But let's say he does every single other mitzvah, refrains from every single other negative commandment as well. What is going to be for this guy or woman? So number one is that this person has no share in the world to come. No share in the world to come. If a person just does not believe in the resurrection of the dead, no share in the world to come. Furthermore, this person is not going to get resurrected in the dead. Like, oh, you don't think there's resurrection of the dead? Yeah, you're right. For you, there isn't. And go to your room. I don't know, whatever. Okay, so I'm paraphrasing. But what happens is that there are certain things when you deal with heretics, you deal with people that they go and conflict with the Torah, and they argue on the Torah, and they're not using their logic. It's for simple, I understand, let's say somebody is in a relationship, and they don't want to be shomer nigiyah, they want to be able to do their sins that they want to do, and they want to go, and let's say somebody doesn't want to be modest, because whatever it is, that's what they want to do. Okay, so they're gaining something from it. Like, what do you gain from an understanding? No, I don't believe in this. You gain nothing. And the punishment is so severe. It makes you think, like, why? How could you be so idiotic? How could you be so not smart? So I don't know what the nice word for it to say, that to go and waste a sin that is, all it is just a belief. So this will take us on to a little bit of an interesting path. Rabbi Moshe Goldstein goes and says like this, says, why is it that it is so imperative to believe in resurrection of the dead? You ever think about it? Like, what's the big deal? Okay, so it's not resurrected. Like, why does that make such a big difference? In fact, there are so many things that will happen when Mashiach comes. For example, there's going to be a third temple. Does it say anywhere if you don't believe that there's going to be a third temple, you have no share in the world to come? You're not going to be allowed to go enter into the third temple? They're not going to give you the code, to get in? Like, why is it that resurrection of the dead is singled out and said this, if you don't believe in this, then you have no share in the world to come. You're not going to be resurrected. Why is it so important? Good question, right? If anybody goes and says the 13 principles of faith, after Shachrit, you say this every single day, and you ever wonder, like, why was this singled out? What is so important about resurrection of the dead? So, there's a very, very important concept when you think about the idea that a body or a soul never dies, never really ends. And in order to understand this is, they have, unfortunately, there is, we hear very often young people passing away. And in fact, I had call him even a close friend. Like a 27 or 28-year-old guy from my yeshiva passed away this past week. Had some sort of surgery, had a complication. I don't know the details of it, and just passed away. And I was so shocked because I saw him the week before. And when you see somebody a week before, it's not somebody who's walking with a cane and he's 150 years old, right? And his beard is sweeping the floor, and you're like, okay, fine, he lived a long life. 27, 28-year-old guy. Completely no drugs, nothing like that. Completely, everything was, and all of a sudden, just, out of the blue, at least out of the blue for me. Was a person that I saw when I used to give classes. He used to always come, and he used to come always at the end of the class. And he would always speak, interesting personality. But, comes to shock, crazy, 27, 20 years old, and just like that. And how often does it happen? All you got to do is open up the Jewish news. You see it again and again, week after week, where the rabbi, unfortunately, had lost at sea. We see it again and again that it happens. So the question is that, how come people are not scared about their own? Does anybody be like, oh wait, that could have, God forbid, happen to me? Nobody. Do you ever think about that? You're scared about the taxes, right? You're scared about certain things that you don't want to do this because maybe something's going to happen. Why aren't people scared about death the way that they're scared about other things? If we see that it happens to everybody, we see that it unfortunately happens to very young people, very old people, and anybody in between, healthy people, sick people, anybody, it happens to everybody, then how come people are not more scared about it? I mean, granted, when they think about it, they're scared about it, but why don't they do something with it? So, the answer is, or Moshe Goldstein brings down, is that a person really connects with his true self. What is your true self? Your inside of yourself, your soul. That's what makes a difference. If anybody ever witnessed somebody that passed away and actually physically saw a person from 1 second being alive to another second being dead, you could see that there is something different. That person is not that person anymore. Jewish, not Jewish, doesn't matter. You see there's something different with that body. That's not a body, that's not the person anymore. I mean, yeah, it's the body, but there's something that's missing that's obviously not there. There's a true self. There's something known as the ani. There's something known as the me, the inner side. That is your soul. Your soul, according to the Torah, according to the correct understanding of human beings, is that the soul never ever dies. The soul always remains. And when the soul passes away, when the body passes away over here, the soul moves on to the next stage. The soul does not die. So explains Rav Moshe Goldstein, says, you want to know why people are not scared about dying in the same sense that they're scared about other things? It's because they know that dying it's not real. Death is not true. There's no such thing as death. There's no such thing as, yes, you're leaving this body to that extent, but you're not gone forever. You live on in a different aspect. So this is how he goes into it. He says, you know why it's so important to have the understanding of Tchiyat HaMetim? Because resurrection of the dead, this solidifies this concept that you will never ever die. That after 120, even after you die and after who knows how many years, you're going to come back. How can you come back? Because you never left, per se. There's a small part of the soul that's always also part of the grave. And even if you're not part of the grave, you're still in the next world. You never left, you're just returning to the place that you are before. So the concept that is so important is to understand, why is it so important to know that you never die? Why is it so important to know, and don't be one of those people, I'm not anybody over here, right? Maybe on the virtual, I'll be like, I'm never going to die, right? And you decide you're going to put on a cape and you're going to experiment with certain things, right? Don't do this, right? Don't do that, right? People can die and do die. In fact, everybody dies, in this world, but it's a temporary death. So what is the important understanding of this? That if you live forever, that means that your actions, every single thing that you do also lives forever. The good that you do is going to last forever. The bad that you do is also going to last forever, which shows you the importance of the implication of every single piece of action that you do today. Right here, right now, not when the resurrection of the dead. What's something very important when you're thinking about the 13 principles of faith, it's not a futuristic concept that, eventually, no, it's going to make a difference in my life right here, right now. And we spoke about this in Mashiach, and we're going to recap it at the end, and how it connects with this as well. But the concept is it's going to make a difference in my life today. And how is it going to make a difference in my life today? Because my actions depend on anything. If somebody is going, I speak to people, let's say, that are in the dating world, and let's say they're not sure in a certain sense if they're going to go out with this guy or going to continue going out with the girl, and they're conflicting back and forth. And all of a sudden they decide, you know what, I'm going to break it off. It's not for me. I know it's not for me, but they still have to go on that last date and whatever. It's like everything was set up already. I hear the same thing every single time. There's such a weight over their shoulder. They'll be like, yeah, whatever, take me wherever you want. I don't care. You go over here, you go over there. Nothing matters. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, whatever. Yeah, we'll go over here. Like, you don't look into anything. Oh, this guy didn't tip. Oh, I don't care. I'm not marrying him. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, all of a sudden, things don't matter. So when people live their life thinking that things don't matter, people think their lives that, oh, it's going to end anyways, and what's going to be, then you live a life a different way. If you know that this guy, you're never going to end up marrying. So you do whatever you may or may not want to do in front of other people. You couldn't care less. Right? Some people may be, okay, fine, whatever. You're not going to be you're not going to be as polite maybe as you would. People tend to, maybe this is true, maybe not pretend when they're on dates, right? To like all of a sudden they're so proper, right? And then they come home and all of a sudden they're a gorilla, whatever it is. Right? But there's a certain pretending stage that's going on. But if it's never going to happen, like whatever, you couldn't care less. If you couldn't care less, then your actions show that you couldn't care less. So if you go through life and you think that, I'm going to die anyways, what's the difference? If you don't care less, then your actions are going to show it. So the implications that are here are very, very severe. And here we're beginning to see the importance of resurrection of the dead, that it has to be for right here, right now. Now, what is the purpose of the resurrection of the dead? There's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, page 91, that goes, and there's a conversation between Antoninus and Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, that they were asking, he said, the body and the soul. Antoninus goes to Rabbi, and he says that the Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, which is also known as Rabbi, he says that, the body and the soul, they could have a claim against God. What could they claim against God? The body could go up to God and say, listen, why should I get punished? The second that the soul left me, I'm sitting in the ground, I cannot move. If you're going to punish me, punish the soul. And then the soul's going to be like, you're going to punish me? The second I left, I'm soaring on wings. Did I do any sins the second I left? So each one has a claim. You know how each one plays for each other? It's like someone that says, no, I need to go. I can't go learning because what? I have to spend time with my family. And then when you need to spend time with family, no, I'm sorry, I got to go learn. It depends. You play with things for, against each other. You want to go and you want to save money. Be like, no, I can't. I have to give charity. I can't give charity. I have to save money. And all of a sudden, someone calls you up and says, oh, we're collecting for this. I'm giving it to another charity. I'm sorry, I have already my money all tied up already. There's ways that you work together, and there's ways that you play things for each other. So the body and the soul could play against each other. They could say, nobody can get punished. So what did Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, what did Rabbi say? Rabbi said like this. Rabbi said that imagine that there was a king who had a beautiful orchard. He had a bunch of fruits and vegetables. Everything was very, very nice, highest quality. And he wanted to put a watchman. But he wanted to put a watchman that wouldn't be able to utilize and eat his fruit. So what did he do? He found the cripple and he found the blind person. He says, now you get a cripple. You get someone who can't walk. You get a blind person. They're not going to be able to grab the fruit. So they're going to be able to watch. My question is, how could a blind person watch? But maybe it's protecting against animals. Okay, whatever, different story, a different thing. Right? The questions on the Gemara, and we could answer in different ways. But in any case, so you put the cripple and the blind person. So the cripple is looking at it, and he calls the blind person over and says, listen, you don't understand how juicy these fruits are. So the blind person says, I can't reach it. He says, this is what we're going to do. The cripple tells the blind person, you put me on your shoulders, and then you'll be my legs, and I'll be your eyes and arms, and I'll pick it and we'll share. So the cripple goes on the guy's shoulder, and they're going and they're eating and they're enjoying. Within a short period of time, everything is devastated, everything is eaten. The king walks by, he sees his entire orchard is all messed up. So he goes over, he sees the blind on this side, the cripple on this side. He says, what happened over here? What did you do? He says, they were like us? Like, how can we do anything? He says, this one's crippled, this one's blind. We're not able to do anything. How are we able to go and grab any of the fruits? So the king was not a silly king. He went and he put one on top of another and he judged them together. Says Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi to Antoninus. He goes and says the same thing is going to happen for the body and the soul. The body's going to say, it's the soul's fault. The soul's going to say, it's the body's fault. He says, you know what's going to happen? There's going to be come a time of resurrection of the dead, where the body and the soul are going to be reunited together. And then when they reunite together, there's going to be called the day of the final judgment. There's going to be a final judgment that they're going to get judged on everything, not only everything, but all the previous reincarnations as well. This is the time of Mashiach. There's going to be known as the Yom Adin HaGadol. There's going to be a great judgment, and that is what they're going to judge, because no one can now complain against the other. Now you're together. Now you're going to get judged together, just like the cripple and the blind. So the Baal Shem Tov actually also brings down that every single night we have a mini judgment. Every single night we go up to heaven, and when you sleep, there's a little part of you that goes up to heaven, and there's a recounting, right? You're sort of like you're depositing your actions for that day. Depositing, withdrawing, depending on your person, right? So you're going and you're going up to heaven every single night, and there's a mini judgment. That's what the Baal Shem Tov says. It's very important to say Kriyat Shema L'mitah. When you go to sleep, it's very important to say Shema Yisrael. It's very important to go, and if you read the whole Kriyat Shema, there's also, you go through, depending on how they go, there's actually a Kabbalistic one that you actually do vidu, you do tshuva every single night, which is the correct way that you're supposed to do it. But in any case, that's the Baal Shem Tov says every single night there's a mini judgment. That's why it's good to say Kriyat Shema. Once a year, there's Rosh Hashanah where you get judged for that year. And then you have, but after we get reincarnated, at the end of the days, then there's going to be a judgment on everything that happened. All your previous reincarnations, everything that you're ever a part of, that's what you have in it. Can we hold the questions till the end? We have. Is it related to this?
Yeah.
That it can be held?
Well, how could you be blamed for your past lives if you didn't live it? What if you are a better person now and you were evil back then?
So how could you be punished for things for your past life? First of all, so you know what? I might answer your question a little bit later. If I don't answer your question at the end, I do want to speak about which body gets reincarnated, different things like that, and I think that might answer your question. So we'll get to that. If I don't, then let's recircle this at the end, and we'll address that. Okay. So now the question is that what was the whole purpose of the physical world? Why did God create the world? Why did God create the physical world? Why not just jump straight to the physical? Why do we need this world? So there's a very big difference between spiritual and physical. Spiritual, you cannot put opposites together. When in spirituality, when we say something that resembles each other, something is close to each other, something that's in close proximity to each other, what it means is that it resembles each other. There's no space in spiritual. There's space and matter in physical, but there's no space in spiritual. So what is the difference between physical and spiritual? Physical, you have a very, very interesting opportunity. In the physical world, you could take two opposites and push them together. Even if you take you ever played with magnets? And you try to go with a positive and negative, it goes at that. But technically, if you're strong enough, you could connect it. Or you get weak enough magnets, depending on, it's like the people in the gym. Either you get really, really big muscles, or you just get really, really small shirts. Whatever ways, it looks different, right? So you go and if you're really strong, or you take really weak magnets, you're able to push them together. You're able to take two opposites and put it together. That only works in the physical world. That doesn't work in the spiritual world. Spiritual world, what's opposite stays opposite, and they will never intertwine. They will never come together. That is why the only way the man could have an opportunity to do good is only in the physical world. Because what happens? God takes man and puts a spiritual being, something that's spiritual, in a physical thing. And now all of a sudden, God could have a good inclination and God could have an evil inclination. Angels, for example, they don't get reward for anything because there's no good and evil inclination because you can't put that together. In the spiritual world, they don't go together. But in the physical world, you could attract two opposites together. And now you have two opposites. Now let's see what you're going to do. Are you going to go and you're going to follow the evil inclination, or are you going to go and you're going to follow the good inclination? So it's all in the ball is in your court. So this is why also then God put together the mitzvot. So now you have commandments. Now you have the ability to go and fight the evil inclination and what you need to do. So everything was created that we'll be able to take something that is two extreme opposites and put them together. Now, let's say you go and you're successful in this world, right? You do I'm not talking about in the physical world, but in the spiritual world, you're successful in the physical world, meaning that you rose to a very high spiritual standard. So where do you get your reward? So after you leave this world, before Mashiach comes, you go to some place called Gan Eden. Anybody here ever heard about this place?
Yeah.
You heard about it. Okay, good. So it's a place called Gan Eden. There it's the holding area where you get your reward. Until when? Until the Messianic era, the Mashiach comes, and then you have Olam Haba, the world to come, and that's when all the souls will descend to the body. They will come together, the two opposites together, and then they will be rewarded together. The souls and the body will be rewarded together, and again, how that will happen, we'll see if we'll be able to to speak about that. So now, so far so clear, so far so beautiful, so far so amazing. Should we go on? Okay, I think it's good. Right? So it's unbelievable when you start thinking about why there's so much. People go and they read, resurrection is dead. And everybody even wonder.
It'll be like heaven, like on earth, basically.
That's a nice interpretation of it. Yeah, if you want to, if that's what you want to. It'll be good times. It'll be good times, right? You don't want to miss it. You want to be part of it. So, okay. Now, let's speak a little bit about resurrection. So, there's some of the things that we're going to be speaking about right now. We spoke about 2 years ago when we spoke about resurrection in the Mashiach series. but we're gonna touch about it just to get some clarity, or review it just to get some clarity on the understanding of the resurrection of the dead. So first of all, there's going to be two resurrections, two different resurrections. The first is going to be in the beginning of the Messianic era. When Mashiach comes in the beginning, there's going to be a resurrection. Who is going to get resurrected in that time? Not everybody. The special people who have the VIP passes. How do you get a VIP pass? You don't have to donate anything. You don't have to pay a certain fee. Yeah, it's not the 180 versus the $18 seats. In order to get the first in the resurrection of the dead, you either have to learn Torah, or you make it possible for other people to learn Torah, your husband or other people, right? Make it learn Torah, or you have a longing to see Yerushalayim be rebuilt. You have the desire that you want to see Jerusalem be rebuilt. Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner also goes and adds that somebody who died sanctifying God's name is also resurrected in the earlier resurrection, and that's where you have the special people. Then you have at the end of the Messianic age, that's when you have everybody's going to be resurrected. What is the order that people are going to be resurrected? So first is going to be the dead of the land of Israel. That's why people try to go and they try to get buried in the land of Israel. Question is, do you have to live there? Whatever. It's a whole different topic in itself on what it means that you get buried in the land of Israel. Can you just be flown to Israel, or do you have to actually live in Israel? But the first is the dead in the land of Israel. Then you're going to have the people that died in the other lands. How are they going to get? They're going to go through these underground tunnels, right? There's going to be rolling through the ground. Then after that, there's going to be the avot. The Avot Imot, the patriarchs are going to be there. Why are they coming at the end of this seemingly, step 1, step 2, step 3 in the sequence? Is because the fathers of the Jewish people should awaken with the joy of seeing the entire nation, with them. So they're going to be at the end of that. The more righteous individuals will be resurrected before the general population. Who is going to be resurrected first? The people that are primarily preoccupied with learning Torah, the Torah study and spreading the Torah, they're going to take precedence over those who their forte was mitzvah observance. Both great and excellent things that you do. But you want to know why it says Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, the learning Torah is greater than everything else, is that they're going to get resurrected first, well, out of a million other reasons, but they're going to get resurrected first over the people that primarily focus on the mitzvah observance. So you should know that people that learn Torah, it's not like they learn Torah and they didn't do anything else. People that they learned Torah, but they also did the mitzvot, but they focused a lot on learning Torah, as opposed to people that did the mitzvot, but they didn't maybe learn as much.
For people who are able then to feel Torah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, how does it work when a person gets resurrected? So when a person goes and let's say a person died blind, deaf, mute, or anything in between. So the way that it goes is that the person first gets resurrected with the same problems that they had when they died. And then when they resurrected with their deformities, they will be healed once they're alive. Crazy. Imagine viewing that. All of a sudden they get resurrected. They come out and they're missing body, but whatever it is, and all of a sudden, don't miss it, right? Let's try all be there. So, what about a baby that never made it into the world? Meaning that the mother got pregnant and the mother miscarried. Does that baby get resurrected? So a question that was asked to Moshe Feinstein. So Moshe Feinstein gave two different sources. One in Sanhedrin, chapter 110b. It said that, it goes and says, how old does a child have to be in order to have a share in the world to come? So the Gemara answers that the moment that it was conceived, it has a share in the world to come. Even if the mother is miscarried, already that fetus, that soul, has a share in the world to come. So he says from here we see that even a baby that does not make it into this world, baby would also get resurrected as well. Rabbi Moshe goes and then quotes another thing, also quotes in Gemara in Ketubot, chapter 111, page 111a, that says, it quotes a pasuk from Isaiah, that says, your dead will come back to life and may my corpse arise as well. Why is it twice? Why does it say my dead come back and the corpse arises, like a double lashon, a double verbiage? I don't know what lashon. Oh yeah, whatever. Double lashon. If you don't understand, look it up. So why? Because the first part of the pasuk is referring to that people that pass away. The second part of the pasuk, that the corpses will rise, is referring to the fetuses that never actually came into the world. They never came to the world, but they too will also arise in Tchiyat HaMetim. So the Zohar goes and brings an interesting point. What are going to be with the people? Let's say there's going to be resurrection of the dead, right? Everyone's popping out of the graves and it's amazing. They're dancing with their relatives. What about the people that are alive right then and there? Yeah. What's going to be with them? Good question, right? So the Zohar goes and says that people that are alive at the time of the resurrection will momentarily die. They will momentarily die and then instantaneously be resurrected as well. Why? Because there's a certain part that death cleanses you from your sins. There's a certain, you look in the Hilchot Shuvah, the Rambam speaks about there's certain sins that only death cleanses it. So it's a part of a cleansing process for your soul. So you'll momentarily die and then you come back to life as well. This will come back as a perfected soul. Now, this is the interesting part, which is what you were asking earlier. What happens if a soul is reincarnated in many different bodies? Let's say somebody came 5 times into this world. Which one comes back? Is it this, or it could be more, it could be less? And so which one is the one that comes back? Last one, interesting point. Interesting. Last one is the best one, not necessarily.
No, best one.
Combine. Oh, the best one. That's a, oh, you said the best one. Oh, yeah. Best one, you're onto something. Last one, shtickle onto something. But let's see. So now, we first have to understand why souls are reincarnated. So souls can be reincarnated either if this soul messed up in a previous life, then they have to come back and fix whatever it is that they've messed up. So let's say a soul left the previous life with a big anger problem, big stingy problem, or any other problem in between, right? They had a hard time with certain sins or certain mitzvot, whatever it is. So they come back into this world with the same temptations. If you want to know what your purpose in this world is that if you understand what is the most difficult for you, if the sin that's most difficult for you, that's what you came to fix. Also things that's most positive for you, but that's in a different class on resurrection, on reincarnation. So what's most difficult for you, that's what you have to fix. Why? Because what you left in the previous life, you have to now come fix over here. But there's another reason why you have to come back into this world, is that every soul has to complete 613 commandments. Now, every soul cannot complete 613 commandments. So sometimes a soul has to come back to complete commandments that it didn't complete in a previous, in a previous life. So now, and this you even go in kabbalistically you have Kabbalists that go and they do tikkunim, that maybe where they do rectifications like fasting and certain things, not for sins they did in this life, but maybe for a sin they did in a previous life. They're trying to even fix things that they did in a previous life as well. So now which body comes back? So according to one opinion, every body that assisted the fulfillment of the mission of the soul can come back. So this is why you can have situations where you have multiple bodies come back, and you have situations where only a certain body will come back. Something that I always wondered. I don't have an answer for this. That's what I was going to ask. Like, imagine, would you see yourself? Hey, me, high five. Yeah, you. Hey, me, other way. Huh?
What did you say? The soul goes in each and every one, or only a piece?
There's always a piece of the soul, right? There's a nitzutz of a. There's a piece of it, right? So there's a piece, right? So we all come from Adam HaRishon. So this is really in a Kabbalistic sense. We all come from part of a soul of Adam HaRishon, and it broke up to many different souls, and the souls are able to break apart, and there's different souls that come in. Kabbalistic, fascinating ideas. Anyways, so if let's say you have a certain body that was involved in a sin that there is no Tchiyat HaMetim. Let's say this body did not believe in Tchiyat HaMetim, that body is not going to come back. Other bodies, if they didn't do it, they will be able to. Another factor is that which body was the one that gave the overall tikkun to this soul? Which is the one that did the most? Somebody, I think it was you mentioned it, right? The one that does most, that's the one that comes back. But the Arizal goes and says like this. The Arizal says, let's say you had a bunch of different bodies sharing a bunch of different the same souls. Who is going to come back? So the Arizal says that as long as there's some progress in every single body, they're all going to come back. So now, the question is that what's going to be once you get back? Resurrection of the dead, right? Do you get married? Do you have children? What's going to be in that time? So Rav Saadia Gaon in the Rambam goes and says once a person gets resurrected, they will eat and drink like they used to, and they will also marry and procreate like they used to as well. What about? We're going to do a little bit of quick little answers and questions over here, and then we're going to go to the final part. What about somebody who let's say they meet their parents? Do they have to honor the parents? Why is this even a question? The question is, the Ben Ish Chai, brings this down. What's even the question? The question is that the parents brought you down to this world with what? With the body. But you're not in the same body that you left with your parents. You went down into the grave, and now you come resurrected again. So do you have to go and honor your parents now? Do you have to do kibbut ab v'em in your non-original body, right? You're getting the renewed version. So Ben Ish Chai writes that a person is obligated to honor the parents. Why? Because he retains the soul that they imparted on him. Because they retain the soul, this is why they have to go and they have to be part of of honoring the parents as well. There's another thing that we spoke about. I'm not going to get into it at length. If you do want to look into it, I spoke about it more at length, I believe, in the class on Mashiach series and Resurrection of the Dead, that Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan brings down that it's a possibility, what's going to be resurrection of the dead? It could be through technology. Doesn't necessarily have to be something so it could be through science. How is it? Through cloning. This is Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan goes down into like a tremendous amount. It's really beautiful how he plugs everything in. How clothing, because everything at the end of the day is all is all. Once you have the DNA sequence, you can be able to clone it. Even if a body is no longer found, you cannot duplicate the DNA. But if you know the DNA sequence, then you're going to be able to clone that body just by knowing the sequence. How will they know the sequence? So we know in time when Mashiach comes, this is going to come with prophetic prophecy, nevuah. Yeah. So with nevuah, you're going to be able to go and be able to figure out what's the DNA sequence. So maybe he says like that. It's possible. Not saying that it's for sure going to be like that, but it's a possible thing that it could happen through science as well. We know like the Arizal was able to go and say which body was buried where. Like this righteous person is buried over here, and they made the tombstones for the bodies that they couldn't found. So kal v'chomer shebekal v'chomer, certainly by the time when Mashiach comes, Mashiach is going to be able to say, okay, use this DNA sequence for this person, this DNA sequence for this person, and technically it could be through science. Interesting concept. Okay, so now what the part that so far so good, so far so amazing. You have a question? Yeah.
Like if let's say you are like married like now in this life. When you come back, do you marry the same person? But also,
I actually skipped on that for a purpose. Okay.
You wouldn't
Let's turn back.
necessarily be like a girl or guy, meaning like your gender could like change, right? If you come back in like a different body.
So that depends on the sins that a person did. What you're going to is a very, very deep question. What happens if you came back as a different gender previously? The Arizal speaks about this in Shal Gigulim, that how come you have, let's say, some, not everybody, some barren people, they could be there because their soul, let's say they're female, but it's a male soul, or it's a male in a female soul, or whatever. There's different concepts on it. If they do certain sins and they come back in the opposite gender, it's a whole discussion in itself. I don't want to get into it. What I thought you were going to ask is on a different thing, because you said your first thing you said was marriage. What I thought you were going to ask is what happens if somebody marries and gets divorced?
Oh, no.
Who are they going to go and marry? So okay, you don't care about that, so let's move on. So again, I'm joking. Okay, so
you marry like the same person that you were married to in this life.
Right. So some people are like, are you serious?
Remarried. Are both of her husbands going to be?
Oh, so let's say, what do you say, a widow?
A widow.
Right, so a widow and a divorce. Well, so let's go. Okay, fine. So this is the part that I did not want to speak about. Okay, let's speak about it. So let's say somebody who's divorced and then gets remarried. So according to one opinion, it says that she'll come back, she'll wed her second husband. That's according to the divorce. What about a widow? A widow, there's a mahloket. The widow says that sometimes she refers to her first husband, and others say no, that this is equally equivalent to a divorce, and she stays with the second husband. There's a lot of different halachic ramifications. Can she go back? Whatever. There's a different concept on it. So with divorce, it's a second husband. With the widow, it's it depends. Either some say the first husband, or some say it's the second husband. But like we all say, ultimately speaking, we'll see when we get there. Right? There's a lot of things that we don't know. There's a lot of things that it's beyond our capability to understand. So the simple answer for these things is we will see when we will get there. Okay, so now let us go. This is the part that I wanted to focus on. In fact, this was very, very important. This is probably the most important part. I want to do a recap, but a different recap the way that I did it before. A different type of recap of the entire 13 principles of faith and how each one relates to another. So first of all, we have to understand the importance of these 13 principles of faith. That if somebody does not believe in these 13 principles of faith, they're separated from the Jewish people. And they have no share in the world to come. Majority of them are, except for, let's say, reward and punishment, whatever. There's certain things that you don't. But a majority of these, if you don't believe in it, you have no share in the world to come. Now, what happens if somebody never learned this? They just never knew it. How are they supposed to know? So they never believed it. Are they still separated from the Jewish people? And the answer is yes. If you're ignorant on these basic principles, you miss the boat. No matter what your excuses are, this is fundamentals. This is why when a person goes and converts to Judaism, they have to know this. Problem is that we don't know, the Jewish people that were born and raised Jewish don't know these things. But the converts, at least it's a requirement to do it. Now, what happens if somebody believes in the 13 principles of faith, but they do the worst sins? They do the worst of the worst sins. They still are connected to the Jewish people. They're connected to God. They have a share in the world to come. They'll get punished, obviously, for the sins that they did. Hopefully they'll do tshuva, but they have a share in the world to come. But these 13, if you mess up in these 13, then it's, like you're done with. There's like nothing to talk about. What the Rambam says that, when the Rambam begins, like when we say the Ani Ma'amin in Tefillah after Shachrit, it's Ani Ma'amin be'emunah shlema. What's be'emunah shlema? So there's a difference, we say you have to believe in it, but there's a difference of like believing it or believing it without any doubt whatsoever. Like emunah shlema. What is emunah shlema? Emunah shlema means you believe without a doubt in your mind. Right? The fact that you believe, if somebody would go over to you and say, does Mexico exist? And assuming you never went to Mexico. Do you know for a fact that Mexico exists? You say, yeah, will you bet on it? Your right kidney? Most people probably would. I mean, assuming, let's say you get something good in return, right? But most people would say, like, yeah, I know Mexico is, but you've never been there, you've never seen it. How do you know? You just know, whatever, it just exists. The same way that you know that it exists, that's how you have to know that the 13 principles of faith. So you're believing it, but you're knowing it with 100% accuracy that this is what it is. Not, yeah, possibly, let's see, okay, we'll believe it. No. You know with 100%, no doubts whatsoever, 100% knowledge that this is the 13 principles of faith, and all this is true and correct. Now, what is the problem if somebody doesn't know these things? Like, what is the problem if somebody, you look at all the people that unfortunately follow the wrong religions. All right, what's the big deal? So they messed up, but they want to honor God. They want to do the right thing. This is something we spoke about in the first class. So we gave the little parable, the little mashal, on, let's say you had a person who wanted to, bless you, he wanted to trick people. And what did he do? He wanted to get money from people. So what he did was that he hired, a bunch of white horses, a bunch of soldiers, and he made them marching. And then he put a donkey, and he put a donkey in the carriage, and he put a donkey, had a big beautiful robe and a big beautiful crown, and he marched it through town. And everybody came, met the donkey, be like, oh, the king is here, and they gave it presents and gifts. And then left. The guy took all the money and ran away. The king hears about this. He comes into the town. He rounds up the entire town. He says this entire town is going to be executed. So the people are like, are you serious? Like, why? Like, you honored a donkey instead of me. So the town goes and says, listen, but we wanted to honor you. We didn't know. There was no back then. There was no portraits of the king everywhere. We didn't know anything. It says this came and said it was a donkey. So this is what we honored. So the king says, that's exactly why I'm going to go and execute you. Because if you think that I'm a donkey, says that's itself you have a reason to be executed. So when you have the people of the world, and they go and they say, hey, you have to serve this guy, JC, serve the sun, the moon, the lamps, whatever it is that you're serving. Yes, it's a big problem. If you're going and you're serving a wrong God, or you're serving a fake God, then it's your fault. It is your fault. Do a little bit of research. There are certain things you don't do so much research. Okay, not so problem. Organic, not organic, flies, no flies, pest, whatever it is, right? Who knows what's good anymore? So, but when you're dealing with something that is the implications, the practical implications are so severe, do your research. You have to know these 13 principles of faith, you have to know. And if you don't know, regardless of whatever reason you have, it's irrelevant. That's how scary and how important this is. The Sefer HaIkarim, Rav Yosef Alba goes and he takes these 13 principles of faith and he separates it in very simple three principles. What's the 3 principles? Number 1, believe in God. Number 2, believe in the Torah. Number 3, reward and punishment. Simple as that. So if you left today just remembering these 3 things, God, Torah, reward and punishment, successful day for you. You can go home, lay down in your bed and be like, what did I accomplish today? And I accomplished these 3 things. It's a good accomplishment. And in fact, when you go into the 13 principles of faith, they're actually broken up into these three categories. The first 5 is speaking about the reality of God, the reality of the Creator. The next 4 is focusing on the Torah, and the final 4 is focusing on reward and punishment. So let's go through all of these as a recap, and then we'll open up for some questions. We'll see how each one correlates to which section. So the first of the 5, which correlates to the Creator, the God, which is the first principle of faith, is that God is a boreh umanig. God is a creator. What it means that God is a creator is not like what people create nowadays. God is a creator, yesh me'ayin. Yesh me'ayin means that God creates from nothing, is able to produce something. Human beings are not able to produce a new element. They're not able to do something new on the periodic table. A human being is able to take what is existing and produce something new, make an innovation, and make it a new creation, but they're just taking what's existing into something else. God can and did create something from nothing. Furthermore, God is a mani. God oversees everything that happens. Everything that happens, God oversees. The second principle of faith, also, this is a reference in believing in God, is that what is God? God is one. God is hu yachid. He's one. In a sense that, what does it mean that God is one? That God is everywhere and everywhere. I guess, I don't know, I was going to say everywhere and nowhere, but there's no such thing as nowhere. So God is everywhere. And not only God is everywhere, is everything that you experience in your life comes from God. The good, the bad, the ugly, the pleasure, the pain, everything comes from one source and it comes from God. That is number 2. Number 3 is still referring to the understanding of God, is God does not have a goof. God is incorporeal. God does not have any physical body. There's no such thing as a physical body. God does not have that. Now, Why is it that the Torah speaks about God's strong arm, the Yad Chazakah? It speaks about the Etzba Elokim, the finger of God. So it speaks of God in a sense that God does have a body. Why does it speak of that? So the Gemara in Brachot, page 31b, says that it's referred to speaking in a way that the people, human beings, will understand. But not that God actually has a human body or anything similar or anything remotely close to that. So the Rabbi goes and asks a question like this: says, "What's the, let's say let's say he believes that God is a physical being. Like, is he at fault for it? He didn't deny the Torah. He just misunderstood. He read the Torah literally. It said Yad Chazakah, so God has a strong arm. God has the finger of God, whatever it is, and he took it literally. Why is that such a big problem? Why is it that it's such a big problem that this person has no share of the world to come, blah, 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 and so on and so forth, all the big punishments that come with it? The Rambam goes and brings down and says that it doesn't matter the reason why you're a heretic. It doesn't matter if you never understood it, you never learned it. If you didn't believe it, if you failed to understand this, you are cut off. You have no share in the world to come. You understand the importance of these things? You understand how imperative this? People go and they're listening to classes and they're going to see which class they're going to listen to. Okay, 13 principles of faith. Let's skip into the next one. You don't understand how important. This is the foundations of everything. This is the foundation of Judaism. If you don't have this, you don't have anything. The fourth principle of faith, which is still the fourth out of five, that is what is believing in God, is that God is Rishon Acharon. God is the first and God is the last. There's no such thing as time with God. God came before everything and will be here after everything. And the final part regarding speaking about understanding God is that you're only allowed to pray only to God and to God alone. You're not allowed to pray to anybody else, no intermediary. You don't need any rabbi, you don't need any JC, you don't need anybody in Mohammed, you don't need nothing. It's you and God. That's all you need to pray. You speak directly to God even when you go to a grave. You don't pray to the grave. You don't pray to the deceased. You don't pray to your grandparents. You pray to God in the merit of the deceased, whatever it is, the relations that you have. So those are the five principles of understanding of God. So what are those five principles that go on? God created the world. God is one. God doesn't have a body. God is first and last, and you can only pray to God and no one else. That is the section of understanding God. Now the Rambam goes on to the next section, which is on the Torah, which is another 4 steps, which is number 6. So number 6, you go into the 6th principle of faith, is that you believe shekol divrei nevi'im emet, that all the words of the prophets are true. Why is this so important, and why is this categorized in the section of the Torah? Because the only way that we have the Torah is through communication between God and human beings. That's prophecy. If you don't believe that there's such a thing as prophecy, then how do you know that there's a Torah? How the Torah stands on prophecy. So in a sense, this is the first of understanding the Torah, is that God communicated the Torah to human beings. That is the 6th. The 7th principle is also in regard to the Torah, is that Moshe Rabbeinu was the father of all the prophets. Now why is this so important? Why is it so important Moshe Rabbeinu out of all the other prophets is singled out? It says, God to speak to Moshe Rabbeinu mouth to mouth, which means is that it's a higher level of prophecy that any other prophet ever had. Why is it so important in the 13 principles of faith? And the answer is that when there's a prophet goes and prophesies something, they could use based on their own backgrounds, how they interpret it and things like that. So what people could say is like, maybe Moshe Rabbeinu got the Torah, and maybe he interpreted it in a certain way, and maybe this is not really what God meant. So it said that the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu was so high, meaning that I spoke to him through his mouth. Meaning that whatever Moshe Rabbeinu did, he was a non-interactive interface, the way that we explained it before. That everything that God told Moshe Rabbeinu, he dictated like a secretary dictating from the person that's telling her what to write, or him to write. It's exactly word for word. It's not that, maybe Moshe Rabbeinu did anything. You understand the importance of this principle? That Moshe Rabbeinu is very important that we understand that he's the highest level of the prophets, meaning that anything that came through Moshe Rabbeinu came directly from God, and not through Moshe's understanding, Moshe's explanation, Moshe's anything else in between, whatever it is that you could think of. That is the 7th. The 8th principle is that the same Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu was received, that's the same Torah that we have now. We shake the same lulav, we have the same shofar, we have the same tefillin, we have everything exactly the same that it was back then. The same thing. And in fact, the Rambam goes and says that if somebody goes and says, this is the Torah that we have, no, I don't agree that this is Torah, one word, one letter is missing from this Torah, the Torah that we have Moshe Rabbeinu. That person, no share in the world to come. If a person does not believe that the same Torah that we have today is the same Torah that we got from Moshe Rabbeinu, no share in the world to come. Even if it's missing one verse or one word, not one letter, I'm sorry, one verse or one word. There's actually 3 categories. And also if somebody denies the oral law. You have the people that deny the oral law, the Tzedukim, right? The Reform, Reform has 1,000 other problems above that. But yeah, so yeah, Reform, no share in the world to come. They deny the oral law?
A lot of them don't really know better.
Right, do we have to repeat that introduction? Doesn't matter how and why they don't know. It's scary, it's sad, it's unfortunate.
Also, let's say people go through a stage where if they don't believe, but then they learn
If they do tshuva, if let's say somebody doesn't believe, but they do tshuva and they believe it, then it follows the same tshuva process. If you do tshuva, then you go and you believe it. Okay, so let's move on. So if somebody goes and says that the Torah was nullified, the Torah was nullified, meaning like the Christians or the Arabs. God gave the Torah, you're right, but it was nullified, and then He gave a second blah, 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 blah. They have no share in the world to come. Right? It's a shame. Or it's not a shame. I don't know, whatever it is. All the people, you have the Jewish people, unfortunately, that went and converted to Christianity. The one they say themselves, and the great-grandchildren could still be Jewish. There still could be Jewish Christians that have no share in the world to come. It's not their fault. It's yeah, it's sad, it's sad. Gotta go pray for all our brothers and sisters. The ninth principle of faith is that the Torah will never ever be changed. The same Torah is always going to remain true forever and ever and ever. Those are the four concepts of the Torah. What is the four concepts of the Torah? Number one, that there's prophecy. Number two, the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu. Number three is the fact that the Torah that we have is the same Torah that we got from Moshe Rabbeinu. And number four is sort of like a branch off that, is that it will never be changed. The Torah will never be changed. It stays exactly the same. Those are the four that relate to understanding the Torah. So far we spoke about the five in relation to God. Then we spoke about the next four in relation to the Torah. Now let's speak about the final four, which is in the aspect of reward and punishment. So the principle number 10. Principle number 10 is that God knows the person's deeds, every single action and every single thought that you do, God knows. Why is it so important? Because it's going to come into play in regarding reward and punishment, which is the 11th principle of faith. The 11th principle of faith is that God rewards those that do good and punishes those that do evil. Meaning that in order to have reward and punishment, you have to know what a person did. So God not only knows what you do, but also exactly what you think and everything in between that. All your emotions, everything God knows. And from that, God goes and rewards or punishes. Now let's go to the final two, which is also in the category of reward and punishment, and this we have to understand. So the final two is what we spoke about last week, which was the belief in Mashiach. And then what we spoke about today, which is resurrection of the dead. Also part in the section of reward and punishment. Now the question is why? What is connection do you have Mashiach and resurrection of the dead to reward and punishment? So in order to understand this, we'll have to go and review a little bit what we spoke about last week, and then we'll be able to understand it very clearly, Be'ezrat Hashem. So what is the whole idea of the concept of Judaism? Judaism is a covenant. It's a brit of love. It's a relationship that you have between you and God. That's what it is. It's a relationship. Now, Mashiach, the fact that you believe that Mashiach comes, that underscores that goes on the highest level that there is a relationship, and it's a true relationship. Why is it a true relationship? Let's say you have a father, and this is what we spoke about last week. Father wanted to discipline the son. So they kicked the son out of the house. Now, you have another father that kicked the son out of the house, but does not want the son ever to return again. So what is the difference between the two fathers? One father loves the son, there's a relationship. They want the son to become better. They want the son to improve. The other son couldn't care less. Now which one is a relationship? The one that wants the son to be proved, to be better. That's the one who has a relationship. If God gave the Torah, and then the Jews, like the Christians, were right, let's say, that the Jews did bad, and God picked a different nation, and picked Christianity. That means that there was never a relationship that's going on over here. It's not a relationship of father and son. It's a relationship like a temporary relationship. It means that the Torah everything falls apart. The whole Torah falls apart if it wasn't set. It was never a covenant. It was never a brit. Well, the whole concept is for the relationship. Now, why is this so important? Because we started off this class speaking about what's the whole purpose of being in this world. So you can take two opposites, put it together, and then you could earn your reward. Because then if you have two opposites, you have an evil inclination, you have a good inclination, you're able to put them together, you're able to overcome it, now you're going to get the reward. Oh, that's something very interesting. So let's think about this for a second. Can you ever do something and you say, God, yeah, now you owe me? I just did it. You put bad and evil, and I did. I'm like, God gives you everything. We spoke about it this concept last week. You put a mezuzah, very good. God gave you a house. You dress modestly, very good. God gave you a body that you have the ability to walk. Oh, you went and you kept Shabbat. God gave you parnassah that you be able to keep. God gave you everything. So what are you going to say? Like, oh, you did it. It's an example that we gave last week where you ask somebody to pick up a paper and be like, now let me pay you $10 million for the work that you did. Be like, what? That's not related. So how is it possible that we can have the whole purpose of this world is so we could get reward and punishment? But how can we get reward and punishment if we can never go and be rewarded for something? It's never comparative. It's never relatable. That's all nice and dandy when you have a working partnership. But what happens when you have a relationship? If you build a relationship with God, that all of a sudden that's a father and son relationship, then imagine this concept, right? So father's very wealthy. He constantly gives the son. Does the son feel guilty? Is there a bread of shame in it? And like, no, it's my dad, my father. Of course he's going to give me. You don't feel bad about taking something. The whole purpose of what we have this world is that we could be able to receive the reward in the world to come without feeling, as the Kabbalists tell us, the bread of shame. Because we'll be able to get reward and we earned it. But how can you ever earn anything? But the answer is if you build a relationship. If you build a relationship with God, then you earn everything. Because all of a sudden, you and God, you have a relationship. It's a father-son relationship, father and daughter relationship. Then any reward that you're going to get, then it's going to make a big difference. And then it's going to make, you're going to be able to go and appreciate the reward to the highest level possible. This is why we have Mashiach is so important. Because Mashiach is what proves that there is a relationship over here. Mashiach proves that you will never ever be removed for another nation. That is going to come at the end of days, the time at the very, very end, where there's going to be a savior and it's going to all be Kabetz Guliot, and there's going to be the entire Jewish nation is going to come together because I never give up on you. Oh, you never give up, it's a relationship. Why is it so important? So we're speaking about reward and punishment, we said, right? Why is it so important in reward and punishment? I'm sorry if I'm going fast, right? I'm getting excited. Why is it so important about reward and punishment? Oh, because the whole concept of Mashiach proves that we're getting reward. It shows the relationship. You following me? Why are you not shaking your head more, nodding like bobbleheads? Right? This should be amazing. Everybody should be like, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay, so now, this leads us to the next thing. So now we have a reward that we appreciate the word, and this is what it is by Mashiach. Now what about Tchiyat HaMetim? What's so important about Tchiyat HaMetim? Why is it so essential? Because we said that what? That a body never dies. If a body never dies, then all of a sudden what implication does this have on your reward and punishment? That everything that you do, you're either going to get reward or punished forever and ever and ever. So it's something that stays forever. So of course it's related. Tchiyat HaMetim is related to reward and punishment. Of course Mashiach is related to reward and punishment. And so you see over here the beautiful concept of what the 13 principles of faith, the foundation of Judaism, and how it's put together in a sense that you understand God, and you understand the Torah, and then you understand the purpose of you're here for. And you're here for what? The purpose is for reward and punishment. And B'ezrat Hashem, may we all be able to utilize this knowledge, and be able to bring ourselves to a highest level, that not only we will come back in the original Tchiyat HaMetim, but we should also be there in the time of Mashiach b'mehera b'yameinu. Amen. Let's go open up for questions. Okay. You had a question? No. You had a question?
I think there was answers.
You had a question, yeah.
Before you mentioned sorry for the part, how we believe that Mexico exists, I kind of feel like that maybe it's a little bit different because like Mexico is kind of here, and the resurrection of the dead, Mashiach, all of them, they're all like sort of concepts that are very in the future, and like I don't want to say this not like an exact proof, but how can I believe in something that's going to happen if I have no clear, we don't even know what exactly it's going to be. So how much do you believe?
Right. So that's an excellent question. The question is as follows. The question is that Mexico, the example that we gave of Mexico is, it's a physical place. So you can go and you can believe it, whatever it is. But resurrection, Mashiach, it's something in the future, it didn't happen yet. How can you believe in the same sense that you could believe in Mexico? And the answer is that maybe Mexico wasn't a good example. But let's say, for example, radio waves. Things that you can't see, emotions. What?
Wi-Fi too.
Wi-Fi, right? People can't live without. So it's a concept that we don't understand, which is what I want to focus on. Underline and bold, we don't understand. But there's many things that you believe in that you don't understand also, right?
You don't get God.
So for example, you say you don't get golf?
God.
Oh, God. Oh.
Meaning God's not ethical things.
Right, so there's certain things, right? So you don't have to understand the details that you could be able to, every single concept. You just have to know, you understand the general concept that because the Torah says it, and you believe in the Torah, that this is going to be true. Now, it's not, if somebody that you trust, that to the extent that, you know how much you trust this person? That you will be willing to jump out of a plane without a parachute, and that person has a parachute, and they will be able to catch you, and you will be with full confidence. That's a level of trust, right? No one exists, right? So no, okay. There's not the Shem by your husbands. Even that, I don't think I'll love anybody that much. All right. So, but imagine a level of a trust that you have. Now, when somebody you trust that much says, "This is what I want you to do," trust me. This is right. So God gave us a Torah. We know that. And God wrote in the Torah, there's going to be Mashiach and there's going to be Tchiyat HaMetim. So there's a very simple understanding. Trust me.
They're in there like fire?
Yeah, this is what the Gemara brings down. That we're asking, the heretics were asking, where's the proof? And then they gave the proof from Devarim, Deuteronomy, that says this is the proof that we have resurrection from the dead in the Torah. The Gemara in Sanhedrin goes and speaks about it. Where do we know the proof for all these things in the Torah? Good? Enough? Yeah.
Do you want to do it first? Oh, okay. Question: do people that aren't from yet resurrected too, and also Goyim or not?
Oh man, it's the things that I wanted to skip, you always bring back.
Sorry. What's important too? There are righteous Gentiles.
There are righteous Gentiles. Yeah, there is a concept that there is a Tchiyat HaMetim in the entire creation. What that means, Who says this? I think the Lashem says this. I think it's the grandfather or the father of. I think it was the Lashem that says it. There's going to be he goes and explains, a very big Kabbalist goes and explains that there is going to be a resurrection of the entire creation. What does that mean? The animals, the dogs, most likely not. But what? I don't know. And he doesn't go into, to my understanding, go and explain it. But there's going to be an entire resurrection. Who is going to get resurrected and who's not? That's going to be up to God. That's going to be up to God. If there's people that are not really, I'm not God. I cannot judge. If you could plug in the formulas that I gave you over here, you should have a basic answer. More than that, I don't know. That's all in God's hand. We'll only know when Mashiach comes. And B'ezrat Hashem, yes.
About the earning reward, I know it's like you were saying, it's a father-son relationship, but also it's like, let's say a father makes like a rock climbing wall, and he gives a child the ability to either climb it, to choose to climb it, or to choose not to climb it. And it's equally difficult. Of course, the child should feel good that they made the right choice to climb it, because they had the opportunity not to, and it was a very big struggle for them. So it's not like...
So let's say they climbed that wall, right? So that's good, and they were rewarded. So what would be like, okay, you climbed a little rock climbing wall, we should give you $100, right?
Extremely difficult. Like, the father gave the child the choice. So you're grateful that he gave you
right.
the choice, but at the same time you could feel good.
But there's always a limit. It's true. You're right. So he did the choice, but there's always a limit. There's always a price that's comparative to what the work that was done. Very difficult for you. You accomplished so much. You deserve $1 million, right? That's what this child climbed this wall. It was very hard. Didn't want to get a free choice, and he did $1 million. So that's very nice. But is that worth $1 trillion? That's a big difference between $1 million and $1 trillion.
They invested so much effort
they invested the effort for $1 million. Yeah, I originally wanted to say $100. I already jumped it to $1 million, right? We added a few zeros just because you said it was so difficult, right? $10 million. Well, there's always numbers. We could keep on going up, and then just add a few other zeros to it. Which means what I'm trying to say is that even if you do something, so all right, it was so difficult, you deserve it. You deserve a reward. You deserve a certain amount of reward. But the reward that you get in Olam Haba, the reward that you get in the world to come, is so significant that it's never comparable. It's never going to be like, well, I earned it.
It's because of God's kindness. No one's saying He's not doing you a favor.
So
we're also giving you the opportunity.
So the whole concept of kindness, the whole concept of getting something is when you build a relationship. The whole concept again is not about the partnership. I do this, you pay me this. The whole concept is because it's never going to be it's never going to be related. But if you are able to go and build a relationship through the difficulties, that's where the relationship comes in. The relationship comes in through the Fumtaraga. Right. So then you're building a relationship. Once you build a relationship, then God is going to be like, okay, we have a relationship, so I'll give you, for the thing that you just did that's worth $1 million, but you're my son. I'll give you $10 gazillion, right? A Google number, right? 10 Google, I think that's a number, right? Whatever it is, right? I'll give you an infinite amount, because we understand that the concept of reward in the world to come is that it constantly gets better and better. It's not like, okay, now it's like, you get a gazillion dollars and then, you add a few zeros every single second. Like, we can't comprehend that.
But Hashem doesn't want us to feel bad that we're getting something we didn't earn, so He makes us earn it.
Right. Yeah. But even if we earn it, we will never get to the level that we can say, yeah, we earned it. You understand that there's a level where you'll be like, I'll give you an example like this. There is a billionaire by the name of, his name was it Mark Cuban, I think his name? Right, he's a billionaire, right? So he was, I remember reading an article, way back, where he was asked if he could do it again. He could become a billionaire again. And he said no. He said, I don't know, he calls it luck, I call it God, whatever he called it once. He said, I got it through luck, but I would be able to become a millionaire again. So even he knows that there's a certain part that it's beyond your control. Like, you could become wealthy, but become extremely wealthy, no, that's already out of the control. So the same thing is like, you can get reward for it. But the real reward, like the serious reward for it, like, no, that's already out of control. That's like beyond your capabilities. But once you build that relationship, once you get that closeness, then it goes on and grows on, and then it's no longer bread of shame. You understand the difference? You might not like it anymore, but whatever.
No, I hear what you're saying.
Okay, yeah.
The people in Ganeda now, will it be a step down?
No, it's to be a step up. World to come Olam Haba is the highest level. Yeah.
You talked about how babies will come back even if they weren't born. It's my understanding that the soul comes comes to a baby after 40 days? Is that
So there is a concept of but first of all, there's a few concepts over here. There's a concept that 40 days before the baby is even born, I was going to say this one is going to marry this one. There's also there's also a concept that you're allowed to pray for either a boy or a girl up to 40 days as well. So there are the way that we understand this, the way that I can explain it is there's different parts of the soul. There's many different parts of it. In fact, one of the things that I wanted to speak about that I decided I'm not going to speak about the whole thing, clothing, it's very Kabbalistic, it speaks about the different parts of the soul. There's there's different parts, there's like 5 general different parts of the soul, but then there's there's different parts of the soul. So what we could say is that there's different parts at different times when the soul comes in, and then you're able to pray up to a certain point in time. But the Gemara brings down, it says that the second, that what's the soul, if it's your boy or girl, then what's the soul that's getting, has a share in the world to come? That the Gemara says that the second the child is conceived, it has a share in the world to come already, even if it miscarries it. So, what I'm curious to think about is maybe there's some Mefarshim, and I have to look it up. If they say that when it's referring to that a baby that lasted after 40 days, but the simple understanding it is not like that. Conceived is once it's upon conception. But I have to look into it. But it's an interesting thing. But one answer that we could give is that there's many different parts of the soul. So maybe a part of the soul comes down now, and so on and so forth. In fact, we know when dealing with parts of the soul, the more that you work on yourself, the more that you have access to that soul. So the righteous people have more access to different parts of the soul than regular do. That's why they are able to go into the next world, because part of the soul, there's 2 parts of the soul that is actually not in your body. It's in the outside. So if you get to such a high level, you have connection to the spiritual world, and they're able to see things that regular people cannot see. Different topic and thing. Well, yeah. That's a good question. I remember learning, is it the prime of your life? I don't want to answer, but I remember reading this somewhere. The question was, what age do you come back, guys?
Is it 20?
I want to say that, but I don't remember for sure. I remember learning this, and I can't remember what it was.
Like a prime?
I don't know. It's a question. So what? So then you're going to have your children come at the same age as you? It's interesting, right? One thing, the simple answer I'll give you is we'll see when it comes. But that's a knockoff answer. That's yeah.
Can a Jewish soul come back as a guy's soul?
It can. A Jewish soul can come back as a non-Jew if it does certain sins.
And guys, is the Jewish still?
Usually, not necessarily. They usually go and convert.
And also, if you weren't buried alive correctly, can you come back?
Like cremated?
Yeah, cremated.
It's a problem. It's a problem depending on the reason. So let's say in the Holocaust, it's not a problem. It was out of your control. But otherwise, it is problematic to the extent of what it is. But yeah, it is possible. I know somebody was questioning about regarding a Jew could come back as a non-Jewish soul. It is, Shal Gulim does bring it down, that Arizal does bring it down, that there are certain sin that a person does that it comes back as a non-Jew. And not the highest level of a non-Jew, like a look into my reincarnation classes. My last one, I speak about it.
I also heard they could come back as an animal, like
Yeah.
even a carrot or something.
Yeah, it can come down. What we did was in one of our classes on reincarnation, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the 3rd class of my reincarnation. I go through what sins come back at what comes in. I think I spoke of most of them. I didn't speak about everyone, but I spoke about most of them. No, yeah.
What were you saying before about like the person passes away if you go to Gan Eden? But then what were you saying about Olam Haba? Olam Haba is only after.
Olam Haba is after Gan Eden. There's Gan Eden right now for the people that pass away, and then there's going to be Mashiach, Tirat Metim, and then Olam Haba is going to be after that.
So Olam Haba is only after Mashiach comes.
Yeah.
You're saying after Mashiach comes, people die also.
Right. There's going to be a level of the resurrection where everybody dies instantly, which how we explain it, and then they come back to life again.
Some people might never even go to Gan Eden.
Yeah. If they're alive during that time, and they're not missing out. It's like they're going to the better thing. Yeah.
If let's say like a body's lost like at sea or like burned from like crashes, do they still like come back?
Yeah, they do come back. Like the Holocaust is a perfect example. In the gas chamber, well, not the gas chambers. The what? The ovens. What is it called? The crematoriums, right? Yeah. So those do come back. Yeah.
Or in like oceans, I'm saying from like.
As well. Yeah. Where and how? We'll see. Come out swim from the ocean. I don't know. Yeah.
You answered it already, but I'm still wondering. Like
Same question?
No.
Okay.
Let's say like a person that was born Christian and they were raised like a religious Christian and they believe in whatever his name is.
Yeah.
So and they like have a very strong belief in him, but if they would know that they could just go directly to God, they would go to God, just no one ever taught it to them.
You're saying a tinnik shenishbat situation of a Christian.
It's like their parents never told
They do. Some of them do. Some Christians do believe in resurrection.
There are righteous like then they believe in resurrection.
Right. So, but do they believe in the final resurrection? But some of them do. But the question is like this: is that what I'm saying? These 13 principles of faith. These are for Jews. Non-Jews. This is a good question. Do non-Jews have to believe in the 13 principles of faith in order to go and have a share in the world to come? Or have a place in heaven, right? Because we know there's righteous Gentiles and they're able to go to heaven. What about the righteous? Like, do they have to follow these 13 things? And I haven't seen anything either yes or no, so I can't answer that. They have to follow the Shavim Zidin and all. But is this required? I have to look into it.
I was lucky enough to learn about God.
Obviously not. Obviously not. Right. Obviously not. Yeah.
Where are the 13 principles of faith brought down, and what is it?
It's based off the Torah. The Rambam just compiled it and put it together. This is based off the Torah, based off also in the Gemara and Sanhedrin. The Talmud brings it down, and so the Rambam just put it into what the Rambam did was something so amazing, is that he had such a amazing knowledge of the Torah, is that he codified things. So he put them in sections. And that's what the halachot that he did. He says, you look at the Mishneh Torah, the Yad HaChazakah, he goes and he takes things from all different parts of the Torah and he combines it. Do you want to learn about this thing? Learn about it over here. You want to learn instead of, because everything is spread out in a bunch of different places. So he put everything. So the same concept he did also with the 13 principles, but it's all based on the Torah. Yeah, let's go in and then I'll get you. Yeah.
If you're coming back, let's say it's like a carrot, is it worth? Like what?
You don't really. So, if you can, we should probably do another class on reincarnation. I see it's very people love it. So if you come back as like a vegetable or a fruit or something like that, you ask, is it worth it? So you generally don't have a say in it, and be like, nah, send the other guy. Yeah, pass. There's a reason why that has to come back as a fish, come back as a certain animal. So. It's the reason that it comes back is there needs to be a tikkun. There needs to be a rectification. How do you rectify it? The very simple concept of rectification is when you take a fruit and you make a blessing over it. If there was a soul inside that fruit, that soul gets released. If it doesn't, then you're going to get possessed. No, I'm just kidding. If you don't make a blessing on it, then you harm that soul. And it has to start again. Go into. There's so many souls. No, I'm not saying don't go to your fruits and vegetables and start talking to them. Be like, so what were you? Evil. Were you good or bad? Don't talk to your fruits. Just make a blessing on it. Concentrate. The more better the blessing, the stronger the concentration. The more kavanah that you have, the more they understand that everything is from God. The more they thank God on it, the better that you rectify that. That if there was a soul in it, that you rectify it. Yes. Good. Okay.
When you're saying that by resurrection, people are going to be healed physically, does that include psychologically healed?
Yes. Yeah. All healing in all aspects.
And also,
very important question.
How do like God also have a soul, but is the neshama as much? How does it work with them? The neshama.
You're asking what's the levels?
But I'm saying we have a neshama. We know I've heard that it's not exactly the same or it's different or how does it work? Because then suddenly if someone converts
they get an extra piece. Yes, they get
when they come out of the mikvah. That's
exactly. They get another part.
So
right.
Then if we have a certain advantage because we have this full neshama, so we have a certain connection. Sometimes how could you expect as a non-Jew to have that connection as much if they don't have that full?
That's why you're right. So your question, I like the two-step process. I like the whole process. So you're right. So let's say the non-Jew has a lower connection to God for reasons that could be spiritual, and the answer is that's why non-Jew only has to do 7 Noachide laws. It doesn't have to do everything. So it's the simple.
Very nice thing about that.
Yeah.
That 7 is the inner essence of something. That Shabbos is the inner
right.
essence. So when a non-Jew does the 7 mitzvos, they're fulfilling their inner essence, of the non-Jew.
Right. They're completing their mission in life. The non-Jew does 7 Noachide laws to complete their mission in their life. Yeah.
And so that could then bring them closer to tapping into their neshama.
There's some. Listen, I know quite a few non-Jews that let's say started with the 7 Noachide laws, and it's not enough for them, and they want to go and they want to keep it doing. And I know also non-Jews that 7 Noachide laws, and they're doing amazing. They're doing great, and they're good just the way they are, and it's perfect. It's fine. They don't have to convert. They don't have to do anything. They can stay just the way that they are. So it depends. Some people want more. Some people strive for less. It depends on the person. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
The baby who is miscarried, they come back
Oh, good question. And what age do they come back? So that goes back to this, to this question. Depending on what. Good question. We'll find out. We'll see. Yeah. Yeah.
What if the baby was aborted? Like, I'm just you can't.
Oh. Ooh.
There was a person that survived an abortion. What? Imagine like
Many
living
people
with it.
have, yeah.
Yeah.
You have to honor your parents, huh?
It's like really sad.
Good question. I don't want to answer because I don't know. I have to look at. I don't even know where.
Yeah.
I would say also it's not in charge of the baby. Yeah, automatically I would say there should be any difference because it's not a fault of the baby, and once it's conceived, it has a share. But we know that everything's connected to everything, and there's a reason why the soul was sent down, and God knew that's going to get aborted. There's a connection to everything. But again, I don't know, so I can't answer. But great question. Great question. Any other great questions that I can't answer? Okay. No. All right. Chazak Baruch.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.